Rothschilds were the consultants to the government, right? And
Fix their bank.
Fix their bank.
yeah, exactly.
Their other banks.
And they were one of the big senior bondholders. So you're consulting with somebody who has a vested interest. And the Rothschilds have been doing this for a long time. You know, and their family's worth hundreds of trillions. They don't even know how much, right?
The
Right.
Spanish know. The Spanish know what said. I was speaking at something in Dublin. I'm not a project. I'm a person.
That's right.
I'm a human being. I'm not an economic unit.
But what are they doing? See, what they're doing is they're herding us. What do they do when they herd cattle, they herd sheep, they herd humans? Why? Because what do? You can disconnect them from nature, right? And then you sell them everything. You sell them water, you sell them food, you sell them fuel, you sell them parking places, you sell them property, you sell them just about everything you can imagine. So we've actually been herded. We're being herded, just like you herd cattle and horses and sheep. We're being herded, and they're doing it in such a smart, subtle way that we don't even realize that they're doing it. And in the end, what's going to happen is they're going to do it all legally. Like, for example, when we voted no on Lisbon, you have another Lisbon vote, and then we have a yes vote. They did that legally. They're doing everything legally.
Under the literal translation of the Irish Constitution, it's done illegally. He announced it before the results came through. I know there's something going through the Supreme Court. I don't know how long it's going to take.
Yeah. Okay. So, but anyway, but in the end,
It was rigged.
even if they lose the court case, in the end, what they will have achieved, they'll have achieved it all legally. And then when you finally question it, they go, "Sorry, you gave us all these powers legally. You're in breach of the contract. In the prison with you, or whatever, you know." So that's sort of like what's from my perspective. Now for me, I have another perspective, because on the one hand, you turn on when it was really in the thick of it, when the radio and the television, everything was just going on and on about this big debt problem. I would switch the radio off and I go outside, like here, and I listen. I go, birds are chirping, the sun is shining. Nature is doing nature, and it's beautiful and it's perfect. So in a sense, this whole thing is man-made.
Yeah, you don't have to be a part of it.
Yeah, you don't have to be a part of it. That's right. So for me, what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to reconnect to nature as much as possible, and really grow a really strong root in nature, and in every way define my sustenance from it. Because I know that the more that we've been corralled and the more that we've been herded, and we supply, we rely on their food distribution system, which relies on their petrol system. And if the whole thing has a kink in it and falls, like there's a war somewhere, you can't get the fuel, then you can't get the food to the supermarket. We're all, quote unquote, fecked, Irish word. So I think one of the best things we can do is really connect to nature. Now, the other thing we can do that I've been sort of realizing is also connect in yourself, connect to the force of nature in yourself, and that's something that you can feel. So you don't have to necessarily rely on the freedom of your society to feel free. You can feel free in yourself, and feel that source energy. So I draw a lot of sustenance and a lot of goodness and a lot of power from within. So that's the other side of the equation. But yet at the same time, I look outward and I go, like, why can't the society be more free? Why do we have to be so controlled? Why do we have to be corralled? So as I looked deeper and deeper into it, I came up with I realized that I used to live in Switzerland, and Switzerland actually has a very interesting political system. It's called direct democracy. I don't know if you guys have heard about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened there was the people in Switzerland decided that they didn't like. They basically felt that the politicians were selfish, and that they were only taking care of themselves and their buddies. So they instituted direct democracy in Switzerland. And what happened was the politicians were really furious about that, because here are these people meddling in their affairs, and so they were really on opposite poles about it, right? So what happened was that when they implemented direct democracy in Switzerland, the politicians were really pissed off about it, because here are the people that could meddle in the affairs of the politicians. But they've had this now for about 150 years. They've been fine-tuning it, and so now what's happened is that the politicians and the people are more on the same page. Because the politician realizes that if they start something that the people don't want, their careers are finished. And so now what's happened is that the politicians are actually doing what the people want, pretty much, you know. And so they're kind of really close together. And not only that, but Switzerland is making it easier and easier and easier for the people to have a referendum, because they feel that the people should have a say. Because whose wealth is it anyway? And whose country is it anyway? So before they based a lot of their understanding of political philosophy on their constitution, and then basically the last I've heard is that they're evolving to the point now where they say it's within the people. The people are sovereign. The people are sacred. The people are sovereign, and it's whatever the people want is what should be. You know. So here in Ireland, there's been a small group of people that have been trying to organize around this idea, and so the idea is basically to try to implement direct democracy in Ireland. And since you already had it in your constitution, the idea is to try to somehow educate the people of Ireland, and then try to bring it back, so that the people of Ireland could have the right to referendum, and so that you could take more control of your outcome and your destiny. Now, I knew that before Lisbon, because Lisbon is sort of like you guys have given up a lot of sovereignty when you did Lisbon, and what I realized was, you know, because before that they needed to have consensus. Before Lisbon, all the countries had to say yes before it became law, right? So what I realized is that if you would have said no to Lisbon, and you would have voted no for it, then actually the people of Ireland could actually have been in the driver's seat for the European Union. You could have actually, through referendum, actually decided the outcome for 450 million people. So by saying yes to Lisbon, you basically gave away a lot of your sovereign power.
I never felt you actually said yes to Lisbon. I think Lisbon said yes, and they said that we said it.
Yeah, that's right. You're right about
we
that.
Actually said
I agree.
That.
Yeah, I agree. But again, it's legal. You see, it's legal, and because it's legal, it means that they can marshal police forces, and they can marshal armies.
All that was without consent.
Yeah.
Within Congress.
There
That's
was
what
also
they do.
obviously debate as to whether they did it legally or not, if the votes were as they say they were.
Yeah.
As I say, the company, they were determined that that was going to be the case.
Yes.
No matter how many people said no, somebody was going to be made say yes. And that was the way it was going to be.
Actually, an ultimate embarrassment to the Irish, because they said somehow they managed to do the no the first time round. That's why.
When you're in charge, you make legal whatever you want to be legal. No, if you break the law, it's still legal as long as you're in charge. It's just like a judge dictating what's going to happen on this program.
Yeah, there's a different set of rules for some people. Like, for example, politicians are immune from a lot of the stuff that they do, right? Yeah. And you know, and it's amazing. I mean, they what they did, and then to me, and then what they did was they gave themselves, you know, they gave themselves higher salaries, great retirement packages, and they gave themselves severance pay. I mean, I've never heard of such a thing, and they did such a lousy job, and they really screwed the country.
Is that a golden goodbye, effectively?
Yeah, but it's like shitting in the pocket of the people that you've just been robbing and throwing it to the other side.
Yeah. So that's the whole thing. So I mean, you can create, you can change a different, you can create a different future for yourself. You can do it, but you have to organize to do it, and you have to. And probably the best way to do it is around direct democracy, because you've already had it in your constitution, and so you can demand that they put it back. But the key thing is that you should never allow the government to initiate referendum. That's why you have more than one referendum. If the people have the right to initiate referendum, and only the people, then how are you going to get the people to have another referendum, right?
Sorry, if you mean if the government is going to have the power to referendum, and they were going to dictate when the referendum is, people are never going to have their...
Right. Yeah. So they should never see. That's called a plebiscite. When the government. So when they do when they have a referendum, it's more consultative. You say, yeah, we have a democracy, right? Yeah, we do. And we had a referendum around that. Yeah, we did. And you voted yes. You say, yeah, see, we're a great democracy, right? So when the people have the right to initiate referendum, only the people, or the Constitution triggers it, or the people, and never the government, because remember, the government is always a majority political party, right? So they'll always do it according to their time scale and their interests, you know. And so it's really the people, because whose country is this? Whose country is it?
The people.
Right. Yes. All right. So if it's your country, then you're the managers, right? Isn't it your country? So and what do they call the politicians? What are they called?
Servants.
Public servants, right? But it seems like, you know, like the servants have become our masters, right? So how are you going to change that? You got to change your relationship to it. So you got to understand the fundamentals of what a democracy is. You got to understand what is a democracy. You got to understand what your relationship is now, and how do you change it? The way you change it is you say that the people have the right to initiate referendum, which means that only the people do. So if the government does something you don't like, you can step in and change it, right? If somebody was working for you and they weren't doing a good job, would you wait 5 years to tell them about it? No, you would say, hey, let's have a meeting, you know, and that's what referendum is. And a lot of times, if you have signature gathering, then already you're discussing the issue in the street. You might not need a referendum because the politicians might just wake up and say, okay, you're right, we did blow it here, let's change it, right? And so that's really the key. The key, because, you know, like for example, I used to think like, you know, why doesn't the Green Party jump on this? Because the Green Party is always worried about the environment and nature, right? And they're always going like, oh yeah, let's have these politicians become like us, and it's almost impossible. And they formed a government with Fianna Fáil and completely made a mess of it. I always say, look, if you had the power to initiate referendum, and only the people do, if you want to protect nature, protect it. You don't have to rely on some really selfish politicians with another agenda other than your own you know, you can just simply do it and organize around that. So really, we have to, so basically the key is basically you have to disconnect the power of the government to initiate referendum. Because if you can do that and you can assume that power for yourself, then you can find the right relationship between the people and the government. You can actually truly get the right relationship, right? And who knows what'll happen, because then you can take control of your own affairs. Because right now they have control of your affairs, and what are they doing? They're just driving it right into the ground. You know, you're going to end up losing everything, and the rich are going to end up owning it all.